Hello everyone, welcome back to session number 3 of Spring Boot Backend series. In this series, we have covered till the top interview questions which are asked on Spring Boot. Now in this session, I will be covering the bonus questions that will be asked in our interview. Let's start. So now the topic of this session is bonus Spring Boot interview questions and answers. Let us start. Let me check if my mic is working properly or not. Yes, it is, and video is clearly visible. Yeah. So let's start. What is the first question? What is ThyMelif? ThyMelif is a Java-based server-side template engine used in Java web application to render dynamic web pages. So, what is ThyMelif? It is a Java-based server-side template. It is from there is two sides, client and server. The ThyMelif is a from server side Java based template engine which is used in Java web applications to render dynamic web pages. It is a popular choice for server side templating in the Spring ecosystem. It is a very popular choice for server side templating, including Spring Boot. Yeah. So let me write it. I have to bring my notebook and I will be covering this. So let me pause this session for 1 minute. I will be coming back with my notes. Yeah, yeah, I have brought my notebook. So let's start. So the question was bonus questions. Bonus Spring Boot questions and answers. Okay. So first question was what is ThyMelif? ThyMelef. ThyMelif. What is ThyMelif? It is a Java based server side template engine. It is based on Java as we are studying Spring Boot, and Spring Boot is completely based on Java. So Java based server side template engine. It is used to render dynamic web pages. What is the work of ThyMelif? It is used to render dynamic web pages. And what is it? It is a server side template engine. Okay. Now the next question. Let me see if my mic and video is clearly working or not. Yes, it is. Let's start with the second one. Explain explain Spring Data and what is data JPA. As we have studied earlier also, like if all the things goes well and good, then JPA page was delivered to the client. So let us explore more like what is JPA, what is data JPA, and what is Spring Data. Spring Data is a powerful framework that can be used to develop data oriented application. It aims to simplify the development of data centric application by offering abstraction, utilities, and integration with various data sources. Spring Data JPA. This project provides support for accessing data from relational databases using JPA. Okay, so the question was what is Spring Data? What is a Spring Data? So let me write it is a framework. Spring Data is a framework used to develop, as the name suggests also, like Spring Data. So it is a framework used to develop data oriented applications, data oriented applications. It aims to simplify the development of data centric application by offering abstractions. It offers what does like why Spring Data is used to develop data oriented application. There might be some question that can be asked, like why Spring Data is used for data centric or data oriented applications developing. Why? Because it offers abstractions, utilities and integration with various data sources. Okay, what is Spring Data JPA? So Spring Data JPA, it provides support for accessing data from relational databases. Like Spring Data JPA helps in accessing data from relational databases using JPA. Spring Data JPA provides support for accessing data. It provides support for accessing data from relational databases using JPA. So Spring Data JPA helps in accessing data from relational databases using JPA. Now let us see the third question. What is Spring MVC? MVC stands for Model, View and Controller. Spring MVC is a web MVC framework built on the top of Spring Framework. It provides a comprehensive programming model for building web application. So what does MVC stands for? It stands for Model, View and Controller. So now what is Spring MVC? It is a framework which is built on the Spring Framework. What does it provide? It provides a comprehensive programming model for building web applications. Okay. Spring MVC. First of all, what is MVC? MVC stands for Model, View and Controller. Model, View and Controller. Okay. So what is a Spring MVC? Spring MVC is a web MVC framework. Is a web MVC framework built on the top of Spring Framework. What does it provide? It provides a comprehensive programming model. It provides a comprehensive programming model for building web applications. So till now we have studied what is Thymeleaf, then what is Spring Data, then what is Spring MVC. Now the next question is, what is Spring Bean? Like what I have studied from YouTube, like first we have to study about IOC for studying about Spring Bean. Like what is IOC? it is the inversion of control. As the name suggests, the power of control is inverted. So how it is related in the Spring framework? Like in Spring, like in general, what happens? We have to create a class, then we have to create a object, and then we have to inherit it. Like we have to inherit a class, then we can create the object. But I'm not 100% sure, but what I know is I'm sharing. So what happens in IOC is like we can do the final process, like we can use the function of that particular class or method of that particular class without inheriting, I guess, without inheriting. Because what does IOC do? It automatically creates the objects of the all classes, of all, not all classes, like all the specified classes. So it becomes easier for the user to write the code. Like it will be user, the code will be like less complex. And that is the main motto of IOC, inversion of control. Like it creates all the objects, like all the classes object without even inheriting it, like something similar to that. And those, like those objects that are created by them are known as beans. So like this is related with IOC, so that is what I know. So let us see what happens. What is Spring Bean? An object that is managed by the Spring IOC container. What I have actually told you just before, like IOC creates the object of all, not all, of all the specified classes, and that particular object is known as Spring Bean. A object, an object that is managed by the Spring IOC container is referred to as a Spring Bean. A Spring Bean can be any Java object. It can be any Java object. So let me write it. What is Spring Bean? What is Spring Bean? An object that is managed, an object that is managed by the Spring IOC, inversion of control, container. An object that is managed by the Spring IOC is referred to as Spring Bean. It can be any Java object. It can be any Java object. So the next question, what are inner beans in Spring? An inner bean refers to a bean that is defined within the scope of another bean's definition. Like we have studied what is bean, and if there is a bean that is defined within the scope of that particular bean, it is known as inner bean. As the name also suggests, it is a way to declare a bean inside the configuration of another bean without explicitly giving it a unique identifier. So what are inner beans in Spring? Spring inner beans. What do you mean by Spring inner beans? Bean that is defined within the scope of another bean. Okay. Spring inner bean. What do you mean by Spring inner bean? Bean that is defined within the scope of another bean's definition. Bean that is defined within the scope of another bean's definition, it is known as inner bean. Okay, so what do you mean by inner bean Spring? It is clear, I guess. Yeah. What is bean wiring? It is a mechanism in Spring that is used to manage dependencies between beans. Simple. It allows spring to inject collaborating beans into each other. There are two types of bean wiring: auto wiring and manual wiring. Okay, what do you mean by bean wiring? As the name suggests, manage dependencies between beans. Okay, nothing all. And there are two types: auto wiring and auto bean wiring, you can say, or manual bean wiring, you can say. So bean wiring, manage dependencies between beans. Manage dependencies between manage dependencies between beans. Okay, bean wiring is classified into two types: either manual or automatic. Auto wiring, then second one is manual wiring. Okay, now the next question: what are Spring Boot dev tools used for? It is used for providing a number of development time features and enhancement to increase developers' productivity, and can be used for the following purposes: automatic application restart, fast application startup, actuator endpoints, additional development utilities. So like these are the purposes of Spring Boot dev tools. Like first is automatic application restart. Like in MERN we used to use nodemon for automatic restarting the server. Similarly, Spring Boot, but these all we do not need explicitly different things in Spring Boot. It is all included in Spring Boot. So what does Spring Boot dev tools provide? Spring Boot dev tools provides, what does it provides? Automatic application restart, provides automatic application restart, automatic application restart. Second, fast application startup. Okay, it is fast application startup. Please ignore the music. Third one is actuator endpoints. Fourth one, additional development utilities. Additional development utilities. Like these are the purposes of Spring Boot dev tools. First is at automatic application restart. Second one, fast application startup. Third, actuator endpoints. Fourth, additional development utilities. And the next question: what error do you see if h2 is not present in the class path? If h2 is not present, then the error will be java.lang.class not found exception org.h2 driver. Simple. java.lang.class not found exception is org.h2.driver. This is the error we see if h2 is not present. If h2 is not present in the class path. Okay, so if h2 is not present in our class path, there must be something. Then we find the error java.lang dot class not found exception org dot h2 dot driver. So what are the steps to connect a Spring Boot application to a database using JDBC? To connect an external database like MySQL or Oracle to a Spring Boot application using Java Development Bootkit, something like that. I don't know the definition of the full form of JDBC. We need to add the following step. First, dependency, then application.properties file, then configuration, then JDBC template bean. Then use this particular bean to execute SQL queries and statement. Mention the steps. Please ignore the music. Steps to connect Spring Boot application. If there is some Spring Boot application and if we want to connect it, if we want to connect a Spring Boot application to a database, using JDBC. Okay, using JDBC. First, like what is the starting lines of these answer? To connect an external database, to connect an external database like MySQL or Oracle to a Spring Boot application, to a Spring Boot application using JDBC. What are these steps? First, dependency addition for JDBC driver of the database. Then application dot properties file creation. After that, configuration of database connection properties. Then JDBC template bean creation, and execution of SQL queries and statements, and creates execution of SQL queries and statement. Okay, so the next question: what are the advantages of YAML file over than properties file, and different ways to load the YAML file in Spring Boot? What are the advantages of YAML file over properties file? Easy to edit, modify, consistence, support complex data types, and how we can load YAML file using the annotation configuration properties using YAML properties factory bean class. Like, yeah, we have read about application.properties file. There are some disadvantages, you can say, like they are not easy to edit and modify. They are not consciousness. What is the meaning of consciousness? The communicating complete information about a topic or idea in a few words. Readability, you can say. They do not support complex data types. Yeah, and how we can load YAML file in Spring Boot by using the annotation of @spring configuration properties annotation, then using YAML properties factory bean class. Yeah. So the 10th question is advantages of YAML file over properties file. Easy to edit and modify. Okay. Then conciseness. Easy readability, easy to read easy to read. Like I can write the meaning of consciousness, like easy to read and understand. Then support complex data types. Okay. And how anyone can add YAML file? Ways to load YAML file. Like what are the different ways to load YAML file in Spring Boot? First, if we write the annotation using the configuration properties annotation, then using the YAML properties factory bean class. Now the next question. What do you understand about Spring Data REST? Spring Data REST is a framework that exposes Spring Data repositories as RESTful web services. It allows us to expose repositories as REST endpoint with minimal configuration by following Spring Data REST technologies like Spring Data and Spring MVC. Okay, so the next question is, let me have some water. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, now the next question is, what do you understand by Spring Data REST? Spring Data REST, it is a framework that exposes Spring Data repositories as RESTful web services. It exposes Spring Data repositories as RESTful web services. Okay. Why is Spring Data REST not recommended in real world application? Because of not optimal performance, for not easily versioning to version the REST APIs, handling the relationships can be tricky with Spring Data REST, limited options for filtering the results. Okay, so Spring Data, what does it do? It exposes Spring Data repositories as RESTful web services. But why it is not recommended? Spring Data REST. Spring Data REST is not recommended. Is not recommended in real world applications. In real world applications. Why it is not recommended in real world applications? Not optimal performance. Not optimal performance for very large scale applications. If our application is very large scaled, very large scale, not optimal performance for very large scale applications. Okay, then relationships between entities can be tricky. Relationships between relationship between entities can be tricky. Filtering, limited filtering, limited filtering options. Okay, how is Hibernate chosen? Now like we are near about to the end of this session. Like only 2 questions are left. Let me see how much time is completed in this session. Okay, 32 minutes. So I guess near about 8 minutes I will be taking to complete this session with this set of questions of 14. And already I have completed the questions of Spring Boot till 34. So 34 plus 14, it will be 48 questions on Spring Boot. Like it will cover the theoretical part of Spring Boot. Like from, and also what I will do for upcoming sessions, like I will be sorry, I think video is paused. 1 minute, I guess. One second. Hello. I think video is paused. Let me see. Hi. Yeah, I am back. So there was little bit technical glitch in our session, but now it is good. Now let's start. Let's complete the remaining 2 questions. Let us complete the remaining 2 questions. Sorry. Yeah, and what I was telling that in upcoming sessions I will be covering the tutorial part, like the real world application of Spring Boot applications, like how it can be implemented in real world. So yeah, It will be a tough task, but I will do it definitely. So because it is a process of gradual improvement, you will one day you will see the cumulative result of all the efforts. Yeah, let's start it. What is the question? Number 13. How is Hibernate chosen as the default implementation of JPA without any configuration? Spring Boot automatically configures Hibernate as the default JPA implementation when we add the Spring Boot starter data JPA dependency to our project. This dependency includes the Hibernate jar file as well as the Spring Boot auto configuration for JPA. To know more about Hibernate and JPA, we can consider the following articles: Hibernate architecture, JPA versus Hibernate. Let me cover last question also, then I will be writing the notes for these two questions. Explain how to deploy to a different server with Spring Boot. First, build our Spring Boot application, create a deployment package, deploy the package to the server, then start the server. That is all about the Spring Boot bonus questions. So let me write it. Question number 13. When we add Spring Boot starter data JPA dependency data Spring Boot starter data JPA dependency, whenever we add this dependency, then it automatically configures Hibernate as the default JPA implementation. Spring Boot starter data JPA dependency automatically configures Hibernate as the default data JPA implementation. It includes Hibernate jar file as well as the Spring Boot auto configuration for JPA. There is some difference between Java JPA versus Hibernate and what is Hibernate architecture. We will be studying about that. And now the last question was how to deploy to a different server. Like Spring Boot has already embedded servers like Tomcat and Jetty, and Tomcat was the default server with the default port of 8080. But if someone want to deploy it to a different server, so what are the steps? First, create the application, build the application, create the deployment package, deploy that deployment package to the server, and then finally start the server. Yeah, let me write it. The last one. How to deploying to a different server with Spring Boot. First one, build Spring Boot application. Okay, build Spring Boot application. Create deployment package. Create a deployment package. Create a deployment package. Deploy the deployment package to the server. Deploy the deployment package to the server, and then finally start the server. So with that said, we have completed session 3, where we have covered the bonus questions on Spring Boot. And this session was around 40 minutes. In further session, I will be coming up with the tutorial part. Till then, be positive, smile and positive. Thank you.